Something happened to me last Tuesday that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. I was sitting in my car in the driveway, engine off, just sitting there. I'd come back from the grocery store, nothing special, bread, milk, some cold cuts, a normal errand on a normal afternoon. And I was about to open the door and go inside and put the groceries away and sit in my chair and do nothing for the rest of the day like I always do. But I didn't open the door, I just sat there. And then out of nowhere, without any warning, without any reason I can point to, I started crying. Not a little, not a quiet tear rolling down my cheek. I mean really crying. The kind of crying where your chest shakes and your face twists up and you can't breathe right. The kind I haven't done since I was a boy. And I sat there in my driveway in broad daylight, sobbing like a child, and I had absolutely no idea why. I'm 66 years old. I was raised in a house where men didn't cry. My father never cried, not once. Not when his mother died, not when he lost his job, not when his best friend dropped dead of a heart attack at 52. He went to the funeral, he shook hands, he came home, he sat in his chair, and he watched the game. That was it. That was how you handled things. You swallowed it, you pushed it down, you kept moving. And I learned that lesson so well that by the time I was 15, I couldn't cry if I wanted to. It was like the mechanism had been removed. Like someone had gone inside me with a wrench and disconnected whatever wire connects your feelings to your eyes. And for 50 years that served me fine. I got through a career, a marriage, raising kids, burying both my parents, losing friends, all of it, without shedding a tear. I thought that made me strong. I really did. I thought I was built different, built tougher, built the way a man is supposed to be built. And then last Tuesday in a driveway with a bag of groceries in the passenger seat, 50 years of whatever I'd been holding down came up all at once. And I couldn't stop it. I didn't even try. I just let it happen. I sat there for I don't know how long, 10 minutes, maybe 20, crying so hard my glasses fogged up, crying so hard my shirt was wet. And the whole time my brain was saying, "What is wrong with you? What is this? Why now? Why here? You're a grown man sitting in a car crying over nothing. Get it together." But I couldn't get it together. Because it wasn't nothing. It was everything. Every single thing I'd pushed down for half a century decided to come up at the same time, and there was nothing I could do about it. When it finally stopped, I just sat there breathing, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the garage door. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt lighter, like someone had taken a bag of cement off my chest that I didn't even know I was carrying. And that scared me almost as much as the crying. Because if I felt lighter after, that means I'd been carrying that weight for years, maybe decades, walking around with all of that packed inside me and not even knowing it was there. How do you carry something that heavy for that long without realizing it? How does that work? Where does it all go? I'll tell you where it goes. It goes into your shoulders, into your jaw, into the way you grip the steering wheel a little too tight, into the way you snap at your wife over something stupid and then feel terrible about it but don't apologize because apologizing means admitting you're not okay. It goes into the 3 drinks at night instead of 1, into the not sleeping, into the staring at the ceiling at 2 in the morning running through every mistake you ever made. It goes into the silence, all those years of silence, all those conversations I didn't have, all those times someone asked me how I was doing and I said fine, fine. Always fine. The most dangerous word in the English language for a man my age. Because fine doesn't mean fine. Fine means I'm drowning, but I'd rather go under than admit I need a hand. My father died at 71, heart attack, quick. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. And at the funeral, my mother said something I've never forgotten. She said your father carried so much inside him that his heart just gave out. She said it like she'd always known. Like she'd spent 45 years watching him pack things away inside his chest, and she always knew that eventually there wouldn't be room for his heart to beat anymore. I was 43 when she said that, and I nodded and I thought, that's sad. And then I went right back to doing the exact same thing he did, packing it in, pushing it down, filling up the same chest with the same weight, like I'd learned nothing. Like watching my father die from silence wasn't enough to make me open my mouth. I think about all the things I never said. I never told my father I was proud of him. I never told my mother I was sorry for the years I didn't call enough. I never told my wife that there were nights I lay next to her feeling so alone I wanted to scream. I never told my kids that I missed their childhood because I was so busy working that I blinked and they were grown. I never told my best friend Ray that I love him. Men don't say that, not men like me, not men from where I come from. You show it. You show up. You help them move. You lend them money. You sit next to them at the bar and talk about sports. But you don't say it. You never say it. And all those unsaid things, they don't disappear. They accumulate. They stack up like bricks inside your chest, and you carry them around pretending they're not there, until one Tuesday afternoon in a driveway, they all come crashing down at once. I think it was my son's birthday that started the crack, not last Tuesday, before that, about a month before. He turned 38, and I called him to say happy birthday, and we talked for maybe 5 minutes. The usual stuff. How's work? How are the kids? You guys doing anything tonight? And when I hung up, I stood there holding the phone, and I thought, 38. My boy is 38 years old, and I can still feel the weight of him as a baby in my arms. I can still see him running across the yard in that little red shirt he wore every single day until it fell apart. I can still hear him calling for me at night when he had a bad dream. Daddy, Daddy. And I'd go in there and sit on the edge of his bed and put my hand on his back and say, I'm here, buddy, I'm right here. And now he's 38 and he lives 4 hours away, and we talk for 5 minutes on his birthday and say nothing real to each other. And I wanted to call him back. I wanted to call him back and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I worked so much. I'm sorry I missed things. I'm sorry I was in the room but not really there. I'm sorry I taught you by example that men don't talk about what hurts. But I didn't call him back. I put the phone down and I went and sat in my chair and I watched television, and I didn't think about it again. Or I told myself I didn't think about it again. But the body keeps track. The body always keeps track. My daughter's different. She calls more. She asks questions. Real questions. Not how's the weather questions. She asks, Dad, are you happy? And every time she asks, I say, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I be? And she goes quiet for a second. And then she moves on. Because she knows I'm lying, but she also knows pushing me won't work. She learned that early. Pushing Frank doesn't open the door. It just makes him lock it tighter. So she waits. She calls. She asks. And she accepts the lie because the alternative is a fight, and we're both too tired for fights. But she knows. Just like my wife knows. The women in my life have always seen through me. Every single one of them. And they've spent years standing outside a locked door waiting for me to open it from the inside. And I never did. Until last Tuesday. My wife saw me come inside that day. I tried to clean up in the car, but she knew. She always knows. She looked at my face and she said, Frank, what happened? And for the first time in maybe our entire marriage, I told her the truth. I said, I don't know. I said I was sitting in the car and I started crying and I couldn't stop and I don't know why. And she didn't say anything for a minute. She just looked at me. And then she walked over and put her arms around me and held me right there in the kitchen with the grocery bag still in my hand. And I almost started again. Because that simple act of being held, of someone just holding you without trying to fix it or explain it or give you advice, that broke something open in me that I didn't even know was still sealed shut. She told me later that she'd been waiting for that moment for years. She said, Frank, I've watched you carry everything alone for as long as I've known you. She said, I've watched you come home from work destroyed and say nothing. I've watched you lose friends and say nothing. I've watched your body break down and say nothing. She said, I've been standing right next to you for 40 years waiting for you to let me in, and you never did. And she wasn't angry. That's the part that got me. She wasn't angry. She was relieved. Because she thought that day in the driveway might never come. She thought I might be like my father. That I'd carry it all the way to the end, and she'd be standing at my funeral saying the same thing my mother said about my dad. I called Ray the next day, my best friend of 30 years. I called him and I said, Ray, something happened yesterday and I need to talk about it. And there was this long pause. Because men don't call each other and say that. We call each other and say, hey, want to catch the game? We call each other and say, hey, my lawnmower's acting up. You know anything about carburetors? We don't call each other and say, I need to talk. But I did. And Ray said, "Okay," and I told him. I told him about the driveway and the crying and the 50 years of pushing everything down. And when I finished, there was another long pause. And then Ray said, "Frank, the same thing happened to me about 6 months ago." He said he was watching his grandson's Little League game, and out of nowhere, he just lost it. Sitting in the bleachers with other parents and grandparents. Had to walk to his car. Sat there for half an hour. Never told anyone. Not his wife, not his kids, nobody. He carried it alone because that's what we do. That's what we were taught. And I thought, how many of us are out there? How many men my age are sitting in their cars, in their garages, in their bathrooms, crying alone and telling nobody? How many of us learned so well how to be tough that we forgot how to be human? How many of us are carrying 50 years of grief and loss and fear and loneliness packed into our chests like concrete and walking around saying, "Fine, I'm fine, everything's fine"? Ray and I sat on the phone for over an hour that night, longest conversation we've had in years, maybe ever. And we didn't talk about sports. We didn't talk about carburetors. We talked about our fathers and how they never showed us what it looked like to feel something. We talked about our wives and how patient they've been with men who gave them everything except honesty. We talked about getting old and how nobody prepares you for the way it strips things away one at a time until you're standing there with nothing left but the stuff you buried. And when we hung up, Ray said, "Hey, Frank." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Thanks for calling." And I knew what he meant. He meant thank you for going first. Thank you for being the one to say I need to talk so that I could finally say it too. And I realized that's all it takes sometimes. One person going first. One person saying the thing out loud so the other person doesn't have to be the brave one. I went to see my doctor after that, told him what happened. He asked if I'd been under stress, and I almost laughed. I said, "Doc, I've been under stress since 1982. I just didn't have a word for it." He said that what I experienced was probably a release. Years of suppressed emotions finding an exit. He said it's actually healthy. That the dangerous thing would have been if it never came out at all. And I thought about my father again, and his heart that ran out of room. I'm not fixed, I want to be clear about that. I didn't cry once in my driveway and suddenly become an open book. I'm still the same stubborn man I've always been. I still say fine when people ask. I still grip the steering wheel too hard. I still lie in bed at night with a jaw clenched so tight my teeth hurt. But something cracked. That's the best way I can describe it. Something cracked and a little bit of light got in. Or maybe a little bit of darkness got out, I don't know which. But I'm different than I was before that Tuesday. Not a lot, but enough. I'm telling you this because I think there are a lot of men watching this who know exactly what I'm talking about. Men who were raised the same way I was. Men who learned early that crying is weakness and silence is strength, and the best thing you can do with pain is bury it so deep that nobody will ever find it. And I want to tell you something that took me 66 years and one Tuesday afternoon in a driveway to learn. That's a lie. All of it. The toughness, the silence, the fine. It's a lie we were told by men who were told the same lie by their fathers and their fathers before them. And it's killing us. Not quickly, not dramatically, but slowly and quietly, one packed down feeling at a time, until there's no room left for anything else. If you're sitting somewhere right now holding something you've never told anyone, I'm not going to tell you to go to therapy or call a hotline or read a book. I'm just going to tell you what I did. I sat in my car, and I let it happen. I didn't fight it, I didn't explain it, I didn't apologize for it. I just let 50 years of everything come out through my eyes, and when it was done, I went inside and I told my wife the truth. That's it, that's all I did. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Harder than any job, harder than any loss. Because the hardest thing a man like me can do is admit that he's not fine, that he was never fine, that fine was just the word we used to keep everyone at arm's length so they wouldn't see what was really going on inside. I drove past that same driveway spot today, same car, same view of the garage door, and I thought about the man who sat there last Tuesday falling apart. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel ashamed of him. I felt proud of him. Because he did something his father never did. He let it out. And he's still here. And the world didn't end. And the sky didn't fall. And nobody thinks less of him. If anything, his wife looks at him a little different now. A little softer. like she's finally seeing the whole person instead of just the wall he built around himself. That's worth a few tears in a driveway. That's worth all of them.